But Heather Sievers is a candidate from the Altoona area and in the eastern part of Polk in House District 40. She has her advanced degrees in counseling psychology and clinical nursing leadership. And she has a young child who started school, I think, was last year. And so she has many perspectives, and I had an opportunity to talk to her a few weeks ago. And so, Heather, I just want to make it short. So we're going to give you 6 minutes to talk about yourself and your campaign. Then Patrick Borchak, he's our chair of our election endorsement committee. We'll ask you 2 or 3 questions over a 6-minute period following that. Then we'll give you a minute or two to close it out at the end. So with that, Heather Sievers, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. So like Mitch said, I've always been in helping professions. This is part of what my life has been, and over the last decade, I have actually taken teams, give me a problem, and I will find the teams that can help create the solutions or close gaps. And I've been doing this in healthcare for over the last decade. So when I had my daughter, Rowan, she's beautiful and she's been through a lot, but she does have rare disabilities. And, I founded Advocates for Iowa's Children to help our kids, help our schools. We have 5,500 people across the state that actually help support us fighting, for our public schools and against the changes to the area education agencies through the last legislative session. And I didn't know I was going to run for office because I've been an advocate in the community. I thought that's where I was going to continue, at least now in my life, having a young family and trying to take care of a kiddo with disabilities. And I felt everybody's hearts break across the state. There were so many people's hearts break, and I felt like people were giving up. And I knew it was at that moment that I had to take that next step to try to get on the other side of this, to be the person that's actually going to listen to constituents, be that person that can answer emails and be there and bring the voice of people into the Capitol. And I have a lot of confidence in my ability to do this. I know how to write policy. I've been very active at the legislature, and I'm excited to take on this challenge to really help fight for people. There's been so many things that came through. So on a personal level, I've been fighting for education, for our public schools, fighting against the voucher programs, and for people with disabilities. But I have a lot of different things in my platform that matter a lot to me. And I am a systems thinker, so I see all of the different things that are contributing to large problems across the state. So, I talk a lot to families about like what's holding them back, from the quality of life that they need. And cost of living comes up so much. Everything is really expensive, and families can't keep their benefits. And we also kind of have legislation in place that's holding people in poverty cycles. So I talk about this a lot. There are 40% of families in low socioeconomic status, and it's been this way for a really long time. We're not doing things at the state level that are going to actually help our families. And it continues, and there's not being anything done to really help. And this is actually low socioeconomic status families, 40%. There's also this whole other population of people who are still struggling every single day to just make ends meet and be able to keep their homes or unable to afford homes. So there's a lot of things that we can really do in the state of Iowa to help with this. And as a healthcare professional and somebody who's trained in mental health, I have seen what's happened to our mental health systems. I've seen what's happening with our kids. I will find ways to remove some of the legislation that's in place to be able to allow for coverage of services, work with our health plans to hold people accountable, to make sure that people have what they need to get the healthcare and the access that they need all the way through into our nursing homes and making sure people have good quality of life. So the list goes on. There's so many discrimination laws that are coming through right now too. And it's hard to even narrow your platform down with this much going on at the State House, but we're going to fight for it, and we're going to get good people in this legislative session.
Okay, well, thank you, Heather. We're going to give the floor to Patrick Borchak. Patrick is our chair of our election endorsement committee. He'll ask you 2 or 3 questions over about a 6-minute period. So, sure. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mitch, and thank you, Heather, for joining us tonight. So as you know, you submitted a questionnaire completed. We reviewed it as a committee, and we have a couple follow-up questions for you. So sure. The first question is question 4 of the healthcare section. It asked if you support expanding the legalization of cannabis and to what extent. You answered that you're in support of decriminalizing cannabis in our state as soon as possible, which we took to mean that you're not in support of legalizing it. You then went on to say, quote, I believe that cannabis is significantly less dangerous than alcohol, yet alcohol is legalized, but cannabis is not, unquote. So given this belief, why are you only in favor of decriminalizing cannabis rather than legalizing it to match the situation with alcohol?
I'm glad you asked this question. And I mentioned this a lot. This is a hot topic. I am a healthcare professional and somebody who really cares about mental health. I do think we have to be responsible with making sure that our kiddos aren't getting access to it. And also there's, for recreational use, it's really safe. I just think we have to do it responsibly. I'm not opposed to moving to complete legalization of it, as long as we do it with responsibility, because there's also a lot of literature out there that talks about the impacts to people who might be overusing it. Any overuse of a substance can cause challenges for folks, just like anything else. And I just want to make sure that we're considering all angles and keeping people safe and making sure that we have services in place too for people that maybe are using it to treat trauma or anxiety or depression. And that's really, it's as simple as that, where I'd want to work with the communities to find out the best way to do that safely and responsibly.
Okay, thank you. The next question is question 1A of the education section, which asks what you believe the state legislature can do to attract and retain educators. Your answer was that the focus must be on starting pay, school support, professional wages, teacher-student class sizes, and general funding for schools as the top issues. So now, please, can you give us more detail on this answer? For example, how do we increase wages? How do we decrease class sizes and so forth?
Well, it has to start with funding, because we can't have the staff in place at schools if we can't pay for them. And so in District 40, I know that I spend a lot of times in the school. I volunteer in the schools. I teach classes there and I volunteer over the summer. And I see how large the classes are and how much teachers are going through. Like, we actually need to figure out how to, we have all these schools that are going up without the teachers there, and we have to figure out why. And so part of it is we have to fund the schools, number one. There's also legislation out there that's been in place for, I think, about 20 years, where certain portions of people's taxes go into paying for a facility and restructure and that type of thing. If we could actually remove the restriction about how that money is used, the schools could figure out how to actually fund the things that is needed in the different school districts. I also really believe that we can't retain people under this level of pressure. I talk with teachers all the time about how challenging it is to actually maintain the classrooms and also even be able to maintain paraprofessionals. So I know that we did do some increases, but again, the increases for paraprofessional training right now or support for their professional positions is still only $15 an hour, and it's not a sustainable wage. So we see turnover of support teams that are there to help our teachers as well. So I continue to see these issues. Funding is a really critical part of it, but it's also that we have to figure out creative solutions and actually go talk to the teachers in your districts to figure out what is actually going to make the biggest difference and how we can do that. The other big impact is the area education agencies, because there's the teachers we've had this really big increase in behavioral challenges and different things with our kiddos, and they don't have the staff to help support. The AEA actually helped really dive in to support all kids. It's a misconception that the AEA is just there to support children who have special needs. They actually were really embedded in the schools to help, and we have to restore those services so that they can deploy where it's needed.
Patrick, we have 5 minutes remaining.
5 minutes, okay. That's probably more time than I have questions, but why don't we go with, please tell us what you're doing to try and win this election.
Everything. I'm sitting in my car right now because I'm going from place to place. I've been out knocking doors. If there's somebody that I walk by on the street, I stop and talk to people. I really care about people's perspectives. The one reason I think I can really win this is because I do have a diverse experience with this, and I am somebody who is trying to bring people together. This is something that I've spent my life doing. We have to reduce the political divide so we can actually make some changes at the state house. If we continue to be this divided, we're not going to make gains. I think it's going to be hard over the next few years, but I'm hitting all the doors. I'm calling people. I'm getting out in the community. This past weekend, I just did a food bank. So not fundraising for myself. I'm fundraising for the community, trying to do good along the way, just like I always have. I've been committed to not changing who I am through this process, and I'm going to continue to serve the communities as I go. And I truly believe that this is what our communities are needing, and I'm going to represent that for people. So I'm excited to take this on. I'll do exactly what I need to fundraise and to compete. And I know I have a targeted seat, and I'm not going to let people down, but I'm going to serve the communities while I do this.
Thank you. Mitch, how we doing? About 3.5 minutes?
We got 3 minutes remaining.
Okay, perfect. Heather, why don't you take that last 3 minutes, give us your final pitch on why you should get the coalition's endorsement, and then Mitch will close it out for us.
Yeah, so I mean, I've spent a lot of time actually looking at what your platform is, and it aligns with what mine is. If you actually look at my website, there's I was actually amazed with how much our platforms align. I care about all of our communities, and I believe at fixing systemic problems and reinforcing and taking care of the foundation of Iowa, which is our public services. My husband's in the union. I've been in helping professions. I have a child of disabilities. I've had to sell my house before to take care of my daughter. We moved into a camper. You know, we're a family that understands how it feels to, you know, barely be making it and fighting for what we need to do for our families. And I see this every day in our communities. This is exactly what people are going through. I have personal experience with it, and I'm going to fight for those things at the state house, and I won't let people down, and I won't be swayed. I'm not going to make decisions. I'll be transparent. I'll share with our communities what's happening during the legislative session. I will fight for people, and I will keep conversations open. So once I get into the state house, I'm going to expect even more communication with people. And this is a group that I really want to stay connected with, partner with, and I support every single thing on your platform that you are trying to push forward for our communities. So I'm grateful to even have this opportunity. Thank you so much.